So let's get started with the demonstration for S3. Hey everyone, so this is the demonstration for module number 5, right? I'm going to cover entire module into this particular demonstration. So first of all, we need to come to S3 Management Console. You can search it from here, or I already have it favorite, right? So it is showing in the strip. So first thing that we'll be doing is we'll be creating a bucket over here. Make sure that your bucket name is globally unique, right? Because it is a global namespace. So I'll just put it as my AWS bucket and I'll just put some random numbers over here, right? And I'm going to have this bucket into Ohio region, right? The next thing is you have to give the object ownership. It means that it will be controlling who would be the owner of the particular objects which are being uploaded to this bucket, right? Owners can be from the different AWS accounts as well. So what basically ACL is, it is access control list, right? It is actually attached to the individual objects or the folder within a bucket, and it specifies that which user or group have the permission to perform specific actions on that particular object, such as read, write, delete, etc. Right. So it can be useful when we want to grant the access to specific objects or folders inside of your bucket. This is a legacy way of giving the access. But a more advanced way is a bucket policy. It is the newer method, right? It is applied to the entire bucket and it is used to define a set of rules for who can access the buckets. We have already discussed about the bucket policy, right? It is bucket policy basically is more powerful and reliable than ACL as it will allow you to define the access control at the bucket level, and it can be used to enforce a wide range of access control scenarios. Right, but if you want some more complex setup, then you might require ACLs also. Right, like if you want to give, it is basically ACL is simple to manage, and bucket policy is a little bit complex, and you need to understand IAM properly with it. So this is the difference. Now, by default, all the buckets are private. So we are actually blocking all the public access over here. If you want to make the bucket public, you have to disable this. But right now I'll keep it, blocked. Then versioning. We have already discussed about versioning, but right now I'm keeping it disabled. We'll be editing this and making it enable after some time. If you want to give the tags, you can associate tags over here. The default encryption is SSE S3, so that the primary key or the master key would be managed by S3 bucket, right? And if you use this KMS, then you have to select here the ARN of the KMS, right? You can choose it from the KMS over here. I have one key already over here with me, but I don't want to go with that. I will just go with SSE S3. Okay. And that being said, we can just click on create bucket over here. So bucket is created, AWS bucket 27001, right? It is into the Ohio East. So what we can do is I'll go inside of this bucket and then I'll try to upload some of the files over here, right? I'll just click on add files. And let's say that I'll go to downloads and let's put the sample credentials over here. Sample01 underscore credentials.csv is the file that I'm uploading, right? I'll click on upload and it will get uploaded in, some time. Okay, so it is uploaded. So you can see sample01 credentials, right? Just a minute, guys. Okay, so this is the sample credentials file that we have. If I try to open this file, it will get downloaded, okay, even if I try to open it. So it will get downloaded and I'll actually show you the sample01 credentials. So this is our sample01 credentials file, guys. It is the credential details about this particular user, right? You can see it over here. The other thing that I want to actually show you is, you remember this particular sample credentials, okay? Now I am changing this. I'm writing it as sample02. Okay. Now I'll go back to my console. I'm back to my console. I'll go to my bucket. Okay. And I'll click on upload again. And I'll add the files over here. The very same file, sample01 credentials. Okay. And let's upload this. So now I should be having two files inside of my bucket, right? Because I've uploaded the sample01 credentials 2 times. But as you can see, it is overwritten, right? The previous file got overwritten by the new file. But what if I want to maintain the versions of all the files that I'm uploading over here, right? So for that, bingo, you guessed it correct. We have to actually go to the version control. We have to on the versioning on this particular bucket. So I'll go to properties over here, and into the properties, I'll just click on edit on the bucket versioning and I'll enable it. Once I enable it, I'll save the changes, right? I'll go to objects back again. And now if I upload the same file, okay, sample01 credentials, this is the file we are adding and upload. So I'll close this from here. Still there's only one file. Actually, this will work when you click on this show versions. If you toggle this, you'll see that you have two versions of this file. The previous one is showing version ID as null because versioning was not enabled at that time. Right, whenever versioning is not enabled, version ID is always there, but it is kept as null. And you can see the newer version is having this version ID. Right. So this is how versioning can help you by preventing the accidental deletions or keeping multiple versions of your file. Right. Another important thing over here is about the bucket policy. So I can go into the permissions tab over here, and it is saying block all public access. Right. So at any point of time, if I go to objects over here, and let's suppose I'm selecting this particular object and I copy the URL. If I try to paste it, if I try to access this particular bucket, right, it will show me access denied because all the public access is being denied. So I'll go to my bucket again, I'll go to permissions and I'll edit this, okay. I'll unblock all the public access. Actually, I want to give the public access. So I'll just save the changes over here. So, AWS is very firm with the security criteria. So here it will just ask your confirmation that are you sure you want to make this publicly accessible? So I said, yes, I want to make it publicly accessible. I'll go back to the objects over here. I'll select this particular object. I'll copy the URL and then I'll try to paste it again. What happened? Only making public, only unblocking the public access is not enough. You have to also provide here with the bucket policy. So this bucket policy here should be allowing the anonymous access. Right. So for giving that, let's I have a bucket policy with me. Just give me a second. So this is the policy that I'll be using. So this is having public read object, which is allowing every principal to get the object from this particular bucket name. Right, so here I have to put the ARN. So what I'll do is I'll just delete this from here. I'll copy my bucket ARN and I'll be putting it over here. Right, so this being done, we would be just saving the changes over here. So bucket policy is updated. Now if I go here and if I just try to refresh this page, it CSV file. Right, it means that the file that we are trying to access is actually now public. So I'll go back to object and here you see publicly accessible, so in red. Right, copy the URL. I can show it to you again. I'll paste it over here and okay. So this is how the public access would work along with the buckets. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to understand is about storage classes, right? We have discussed that we are having various storage classes. So this is our bucket. Into this particular bucket, I have the sample01 credentials.csv file. Over here, if I go to, a little bit down, then I'll find the S3 storage class. By default, every object is stored into the standard class. If you want to edit this, you can. Okay. So what we can do is we can move it to the standard infrequent access. Now see what will happen if I try to save the changes. Okay, so it is basically stored into the standard infrequent access now. So you can see over here at the bottom, the storage class is being changed. right? Another thing is, instead of doing this manually, right, what I can do is I can just create the life cycle policy for my bucket. So I'll go back to my bucket over here, and into this we'll be going into the management, right? And into the management, we have to create the life cycle rules. Now here you get many options. First of all, you have to enter the rule. So let's say we'll be just naming it as sample rule. And do you want to limit the scope of this rule using one or more filter, or do you want to apply to all the objects into this bucket? So let's say I'll be just applying it to all the objects in the bucket, though it will ask you that what are the lifecycle rule actions, like do you have to move the current version of the object between the storage classes, or non-current, or do you want to expire the current version, etc., right? So you have to make, you can make intelligent ways over here, because here it is showing per request fees are being applied, right? So I'll say that move the non-current version of the object between the storage classes. Okay, so basically all the objects by default are in the standard class, right? So I want to move them to the standard infrequent class. Now see here, if I just put 10 over here, then it will not work, right? Because you have to minimum keep it 30 days in the standard class before transitioning it to the storage standard infrequent, right? When you are using this life cycle rules. So I'll just put here 30 days over. Okay, the number of versions that the number of newer versions to retain, this is optional, but if you want to retain few versions, right, if you don't want to mark them as non-current, then you can put it over here. All other non-current versions would be moved apart from these, right? So I just want to move all the versions of my objects to be moved to standard infrequent. Now if you want to add another transition, then you can add it. So from standard infrequent access, we can go to, let's say, Glacier Deep Archive. Okay, and I want to keep 90 days before I move it to the Deep Archive, right? And say here, transitioning small objects to flexible retrieval or Glacier Deep Archive will incur per object cost. Right, so you will be actually charged for each object you transition. So you have to be careful about these charges, right? You can see the pricing page as well for understanding more about this. So you can just acknowledge this and you can move ahead. So after 30 days, you'll be going to the standard and frequent, and then after 88 days, you'll be moving to the Glacier Deep Archive. Right. So this being said, I will just create this rule. And once you create this rule, this will be applied to all your objects. Obviously, right now we cannot see it, right? Because we haven't been there. 30 days aren't being over. So that's why we cannot see that in action. But yes, this is how you can create your lifecycle configurations, right? Or lifecycle rules. Okay, so now I'll go to the management tab again over here, and you can see we have this rule enabled, right? The next rule is I'm going to create this replication rule over here. I do already have one rule, but I'll just delete that off, right? And we'll be creating a rule, fresh rule. So let's create a replication rule over here. I'll just put the rule ID as rule 1 again. I want to enable this rule right now. Okay, so that it would be activated as soon as it is created. So the source bucket is this one, my AWS bucket, which we created, right? I want to apply this rule to all the objects in my bucket. I don't want to limit this rule by filling out any objects, right? And I have to specify the bucket, another bucket, which would be acting as destination. So I do have this sample 9908 bucket. So I'll choose this particular path. You can see both of them are in the different region. The source is in the destination is in North Virginia, right? So this is where the cross-region replication comes into the picture. One more important thing you have to remember is when you are doing cross-region replication, versioning should be enabled on both of the buckets, right? So once it is done, we have to create the IAM role, right? So I do not have any IAM role created for it, so I'll simply select this create new role, and accordingly role would be created. I do not want to use the encryption, right? And if you want to change the destination storage class, you can do it, right? Then there are some additional replication options that I don't want to just go with. So we'll just click on save over here. rule is created, okay, it will ask that do you want to replicate the existing object to the destination object? So no, I don't want to replicate the objects right now. I'll simply click on submit, right? And our application rule is created, right? Okay, so now that we have created the rule, let's just upload something in our source bucket, right? So I'll just click on upload over here. I'll add the files. And let's say I'm just adding this screenshot over here, right? And this is the PNG file. Let's upload it. The file is uploaded successfully on our source bucket. Now we have to check whether this file is actually there on our destination bucket or not, right? So this is the file which is 11116, right? So I'll go back to buckets and I'll go to my destination bucket and we will just refresh over here. It takes few seconds for reflecting the objects when both the buckets are in sync. So you can see screenshot 113116 over here as well. So whatever we had in our source bucket is also getting replicated here in our destination bucket.